Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing the importance of centralizing your IT environment and really reducing your IT footprint to help manage detection and response, both from insider threats and external threats. Welcome. My name is Mike Abood. I'm the founder and CEO of TetherView. We are the creators of the Digital Bunker. We're excited to be here this afternoon, and we look forward to this presentation. So, insider threats has been a really hot topic these days. Lots of different technologies have been breached, both internally, IoT. You look at different hacks like the Verkada hack, the recent SolarWinds hack. We recently received a notice from the New Jersey Cybersecurity Council that everyone should vigilantly look at their Microsoft environments to see if there's any lateral movements. And again, what is managed detection and response? Well, detection and response means, can you detect a bad actor? Can you detect a threat within your organization? And then how do you respond to it? What are the challenges and what are the solutions? So today, unfortunately, the gaps, the challenges is that every organization, except for our self-serving statement here, the Digital Bunker clients, you're dealing with a very fragmented, spread out IT environment. So you've got SaaS applications hosted at AWS, Azure, Google. You have apps that are sitting on a user's desktop and their laptop. And then you might be hosting something in a colo someplace. So what you end up with is a very fragmented IT environment. It's almost impossible to detect movement that's unauthorized in that scenario because you have so many open doors, so many open windows that you're trying to protect. So when a fly comes in, how do you know it's not part of the wind? And how do you tell if it's a fly versus a leaf coming in the window that day? So it's important that as you think about how to protect your IT infrastructure, you really need to think about reducing that IT infrastructure. The other challenge with MDR is addressing the skills gap. Do you have the people, the team, the tools to not only detect what's going on today, but to constantly evolve and stay ahead of that curve? Well, if you have less than 5,000 employees, you probably don't have the budget. You probably don't have the team, or if you have the team, they're stretched very thin. Us IT people tend to be thought of as being responsible for everything that's plugged into a wall, including the coffee machine. So we really need to think about your IT environment and reducing that IT footprint. A recent survey kind of showed that 53% of organizations report problematic shortage of cybersecurity skills. I can tell you that number is probably much higher because a lot of folks that are out there that are claiming to be cybersecurity experts aren't. And then what ends up happening is you hire a cybersecurity expert, you take that person, you put them into a vacuum watching your environment, and they're not able to evolve and see the different threats that are out there. So it's important that we also make this process less manual. We automate this. We make it so that we reduce the amount of human interaction, but also increase the amount of positive alerts that we're getting and eliminate or get close to eliminating the false positives. So common challenges managers facing when handling their MDR strategies, again, keeping up with the constant changing landscaping, staying ahead of attackers. Look, the threat landscape has changed. You look at the Verkada hack, which I think is going to have huge implications down the road. This was a camera company that unfortunately major US organizations said, hey, we're going to let these cameras run on the same network as my ERP system. And they thought that they trusted Verkada, and they did, right? But they had a breach. And what people were doing, and these are the types of hacks that we've been talking about for years, if not at least a decade already, is that little IoT, that Ring camera, that whatever you put on there, it's not necessarily the Ring camera that's getting into your environment. It's the fact that you're using a really silly password for that Ring camera. So if you have an administrator who's accessing Ring or a Verkada system or any other system that's an IoT in your environment, and you look at that particular environment as a non-threat, it's outside of the scope of compliance, maybe it's outside of the scope of security, well, that's where the hackers are looking, right? They know that you're going to use your Netflix password for that. So they go and they buy your Netflix password for 10 cents, maybe probably less, on the web, and they try it and they get in and they got you, right? Because once they're in, now they have your Wi-Fi password and now they're in your network. And hopefully, if they're doing their job right, for their perspective, they're undetected. So what's important here is, again, by looking at reducing your IT footprint and creating hard segregation, physical segregation between all of the different systems that you can, your access control system to the buildings, your camera systems, your ERP systems, your desktops, creating physical separation between those systems is critical. And that's really the first step of eliminating the stress on detection and response and that team that has to do it. Simply put, how do you improve, your and optimize your MDR strategy? Its first step is reduce your IT footprint. And by using a technology like the digital bunker, right, what we've done is we are bringing the users to the data as opposed to bringing the data to the users. So we're eliminating the number of endpoints. We're eliminating the number of open doors and open windows that we have to secure for a client's team. What that gives us is an inordinate amount of visibility into your IT infrastructure. So once you're inside a digital bunker, nothing can access it except something that's authorized. At the core of the solution is a virtual desktop. And the benefit of a virtual desktop is that we can control very, 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 very controlled who accesses it, what they access once they're in there, where they access it from, when they access it. So without a virtual desktop, you probably have a VPN, which now creates yet another vulnerability point. And now you have an endpoint that someone logs into because it's a physical endpoint that's offline and off a network. Once they log into the network, that endpoint, there's probably no MFA. 99.99% of physical laptops don't have MFA to get into it initially. And right there is the first sign of trouble for an organization. Well, with a virtual desktop, your corporate data is always inside the digital bunker that's built for you. So now the IoT devices that are physically in your offices, the IoT devices that are physically in your employees' homes, right, don't become a threat to your corporate infrastructure. Because if you think about it, how can you tell if someone's sitting at home and they're using no security on their local network, because security is tough for most non-IT practitioners? How can you tell that their local network isn't compromised and that their local instance of Chrome isn't compromised? It's impossible, especially if it's a BYOD scenario. So what we tell our users is create this digital bunker, regardless if the local device is compromised or not. They get into the digital bunker, it's MFA, and when we say MFA, we mean we're geo-tracking physical location, their MFA code, that they should be coming in at the right time. Very, very many multiple points of authentication, not just two, not just one, not just three, but there's multiple points of authentication there. And what that does is it allows us to create a near zero trust environment, essentially as close to a zero trust environment as possible. So we're going to take away all of your users' passwords and prevent them from having to get into a desktop and then remember all of these other passwords, or use lots of different passwords. And what most people do is they start repeating them, and then you end up with a really bad situation where they love the Yankees, so they use Yankees 1 2 3 4 as their password everywhere, and now they're toast. And so again, getting back to the topic of managed response and detection, the concept here is that once they're in, we can see everything, right? So once they're in, we're tracking what they're touching, what they're doing, and if somehow or another something was able to get in there, we can quickly turn it off. Or because now the VDI, the network, the data that's being hosted, the access to the internet is all essentially like an old school in the office, you're all sitting telepresent inside a digital bunker, we can granularly see one way in and one way out, even from the internet, and see what's going on. So we capture and log and audit every action. network level, Active Directory, file servers, desktops, applications, um, your URL access. And when you have SaaS applications, hey, let's prevent them and let's turn on SSO, but make it convenient for the users so that they're not accessing those SaaS applications from any old device everywhere, creating yet another vulnerability. You know, the fact of the matter is most people want to work and they want to be productive. So if you as an organization don't give your team the tools to be productive from everywhere, anytime, they're going to find ways around it, right? And COVID accelerated that. So now with BYOD, everybody wants to work from their Mac or whatever it is. You gave them access to your ERP software, which is hosted, on the web and available through a web browser, and now they can log in from everywhere. So again, we want to eliminate that. But if you eliminate that and don't give them the functionality to work effectively, you're never going to be able to detect a breach. You're never going to be able to stop people from accessing things where they shouldn't be, and it's going to be really, really hard to control the IT experience. So if you want to learn more about how we handle detection and response, please schedule a demo. Happy to do a deeper dive, show you some of the tools. This is a public facing document, so we don't really get into the specific tools that we use, but we can show you some of the audit tools and the granularity at which we can see. Love to schedule a demo, happy to do a one-on-one and get into that. So we appreciate that.